Simon didn't start again. Okay, so I guess they're having some issues.
So this is a fun tutorial.
Okay, there we go.
Aha! Alright, now it's actually running. I wasn't sure if it was like doing hours, minutes, or something else.
Yeah, it looks like there was just some time issues there. Okay, so here we go. So to avoid covering the basics again, so at the start of the game we have this little kind of prologue area, and there's these 3 fights, or 4 fights, I don't remember the exact number. 2 with Anubises.
There's the open one, and then there's 3 more. So yeah, 2 are Anubises and 2 are Niblets.
Yeah, and there you store a stagger, so the idea with these first couple of fights is to do 4 or 5 spells, like magical spells, in this case thunder, on the red garb, and then you'll get a stagger, which in Japanese is called knockout, which is a much cooler name. And then we'll just go in for attacks, because staggering will cause the Anubis to have deprotect, I believe. Or unprotected, in this, as it's called.
Yeah, there is a subtle difference here. Actually, it's a new thing in the Lightning Returns, is that when you stagger an enemy, sometimes extra effects will trigger. In that case, the extra effect was that the Anubis gets the unprotected effect, which happens if you do a magic stagger, I believe. If you do a guard stagger, something else happens, and if you do a physical stagger, it's something else.
Yeah, we'll get the guard stagger here.
Yeah, so there's different kinds of staggers that correspond to different things. The guard stagger here happens if you perfect guard, or just the guard, which is to time the guard ability at the exact moment, or not exact, but like within a few frames of the attack hitting you.
And that gives
you'll know you'll have gotten this if you get a chime.
Yeah, so perfect timing is actually a thing for all abilities in this game. For guarding, it's guarding just as the attack hits, but you also see it on offensive abilities like attacks and spells. And if you get it correctly, there'll be a slightly different noise, and lightning will have like a golden glow around her very briefly. And that actually increases the stagger potential of moves by a significant amount, so it's definitely something to go for a lot in the run. And there are a couple of strats that require you to do it pretty well, otherwise you'll start having bad things happen.
It also increases the damage of attacks,
yes,
which sometimes is factored into damage calculations. If you don't get the perfect timing, then you'll have to do extra actions and make the fight longer.
Yeah. Also in this game, on the map, while the encounter system kind of remains the same with enemies being spawned and then you can attack them to start battle, or they attack you and it starts battle, we also have a stamina bar, which grows with the ATB of your main garb and allows you to sprint, which makes movement in this game a little bit more interesting than the previous 2, because there is actually some optimization of the sprint gauge. And if you run it all the way down, it refills slower, so that's a bad thing.
Yeah, so you have to be careful that you don't do it too late, and it's actually a little deceptive. Like if you think you release it right at the last moment, you'll be too late. You have to release it like when there's still like 1 or 2 blue bars left.
Also, you might know that the HP bar is present on the overworld. HP values actually carry over between fights in this game, conversely to the other 2 games in the trilogy. And that does make encounters, well, managing health across encounters and battles a little bit of a problem sometimes. Only usually when things start going badly, but it's definitely something to note. Okay, so at the end of this tutorial section we have this first kind of boss here, which is Zoltis. We'll introduce a new mechanic called Overclock. It's actually the staggering tutorial.
If you haven't noticed stagger by now, I mean, I guess like this is more of a, you have to do extra stuff to get the stagger happening here, which in that case, they had to do 8 spells, I believe, in order to get the stagger triggered. I also noticed that he did a second stagger within the stagger. There was a nested stagger there. The first stagger gave the unprotected debuff, and the second one gave, I forget what it's called, maybe brittle, which increases the damage of fire elemental attacks. Unfortunately, we don't end up using that. We just do straight attacks. But if you had Flame Strike, for instance, that would be super effective because you would get double boosted.
Yeah, and that applies to every Zoltis fight as we go along. So you will see it again. But Overclock as well, to explain quickly, is a move that uses 2 EP, which is the circular gauge in the bottom left, and it basically speeds up time, or slows down time, whichever way you want to describe it, so that you can do more things when the enemy moves slower. There's Also kind of helps because the stagger decay is on the enemy's time, as it were. So stagger decay is a lot slower during overclock, so you have enough time to go for tighter staggers or just do more damage before the enemy can react.
So stagger decay is when, like, as you work on staggering, the enemy starts stabilizing their stagger gauge. Each enemy has a different amount of decay associated with their stagger gauge. So, namely, the final phase of the final boss is a really high decay rate, which means you have to be consistently working towards staggering him in order to be able to get anywhere close. But you can sort of bypass the whole decay system by using Overclock to slow down the enemy and speed up your abilities, and therefore contribute to the stagger gauge better.
So here we have the Arc, which is kind of hub for this game. You come back here at the end of each day, and the day system I'm sure we'll get into in a moment. But the first point we get here, we have to grab some items from chests. Throwing away potion next, we don't need it. And those items are mainly abilities and new garbs that we can equip. And then we have to do this little tutorial with the book.
Yeah, this segment has a bunch of mandatory actions that we just go through as fast as we can. One of which is to go back into this fight in order to get the GP ability tutorial, or EP in English. I don't know what the G is.
I don't remember.
It's actually EP in the English game, but I don't know why it's GP in the Japanese. Probably some different word there. But like it says, this is how you use EP, and you can use it from the pause menu. Then you have to go talk to Hope, and then he says, now you can return to Nova Crystallis, which is the world of this game. And then, this isn't the mandatory section, but this is important. He is purchasing Warriors Potions.
Phoenix Downs.
Yeah. Oh, Phoenix Downs.
I think there was one Warriors Potion in there, yeah. But
one Warriors and 4 Phoenixes. Okay. Yeah, some route differences from the last years. I've confused them all, but... So potions in this game don't just heal HP, or at least the base potion does only heal HP, but there are different potions that heal HP but also provide you with status effects. Because there's no real buffing in this game, like manually casting haste or bravery. You can only get that by throwing potions on your character. Or at least in the speedrun, that's the only way of doing it. Yeah, there's several other things that you can do that we won't be seeing.
Yeah. And throwing items is a little different in this game because you actually have to pause the fight you're in to choose an item to throw, which is kind of why we have access to Phoenix Downs, because when you die, the game will give you access to your item menu, and you can use a Phoenix Down to revive yourself in the fight.
Unfortunately, the Phoenix Downs we just purchased, we are going to sell, and the reason that we bought those to sell them is that we used our EP points instead of Gil to purchase those potions, and now we're going to sell them for Gil in order to afford certain items.
Yep. And so here, this first day on Luxorion, normally you're meant to do a couple of side quests and then peace out. But we actually found a while ago that you can attack these enemies instead. And when you escape from an enemy, it advances the time by 1 hour, and everything in this area unlocks at midnight. So instead of doing the side quests and progressing time normally, we actually just constantly attack and escape from the enemy to advance the time to past midnight, and then grab a couple of items and skip the rest of the day, which prevents us to having to do a little side quest that we don't want to do.
So it's a bit of an exploit, because the whole idea of escaping a fight costs an hour in your time is that we have only limited time to beat the game, which in the speedrun is very negligible. Like, we have way too many days. We're going to spend about 4 or 5 days literally sleeping.
Yeah.
But the whole idea is that you don't want to have to escape fights because it will cost an hour. But in the speedrun, we end up escaping from fights to advance the time. And in this case, it was to skip what used to be believed to be a mandatory side quest. But we can force it to be failed by escaping the fight to advance to midnight, which advances the story.
Yeah. And for those of you who didn't see where the clock was, it's actually just under the minimap on the top right corner of the screen. There's also a message there which used to say 6 days remaining until the end. It will now say 5 when we go back to the next day. But at the end of each day, at 6 AM, you return to the Ark, because Hope has to intrude, and then you can go back to Nova Crystallis and carry on. And you get the option to respawn exactly where you were at the end of the previous day, or go to any specific warp point that you've unlocked.
So this is some mandatory conversations with Hope, basically explaining the main quest and side quest system of the game.
Yeah. And then there's a treasure chest here.
Each day there's a new chest that gets added to the Ark, but we're not going to grab like anything beyond what we've gotten so far, and then one more ability later. Or I guess also Garbs later. Or well, I guess no, not the Garb upgrade. That is not forced.
No,
but
we
do get it. But yeah, sorry. Let me clarify. I thought that was forced, but then I realized no, it's not forced. You can skip it. But yeah, we will get it.
Yeah. So the first chest that we got before the first day contained the Mist Wizard Garb, Devil Daughter's weapon, shield called the Puitwen, Blizzard and Light Guard abilities, and then he just picked up the Red Mage Garb, the Liberator weapon, and the Uno Sospita shield. And those are the kind of, along with the things we had in the tutorial section, form the basis for what we're going to use for the first couple of days. We can assume that he will eventually be going for some other things as well, but we do not know. It'll be an adventure for all of us to see exactly which route the runner is using.
We're already seeing him, you know, killing time by sleeping at the end. She just slept, or she slept till 6 to go to the Ark, and now she's sleeping again until midnight to take a train to Yusnaan.
Yeah. So this game has 4 areas: Luxorion, which is where we started; Yusnaan, which is the other city that we're traveling to now; and then the 2 other areas which we haven't seen yet are the Wildlands and the Dead Dunes. And each area has its own main quest, as well as a main quest that spans multiple areas. And to beat the game, you have to complete all 5 main quests to unlock the final day of the game, to basically to increase the amount of time you have left to reach the end, and then do the final day stuff. So, on the speedrun, as you might imagine, is do some setup, complete the 5 main quests as quickly as possible, and then sleep for the rest of the run until we get to the final day, so we can finish the game. Because just having a fixed length of time kind of works against us, since we have to stay to the end anyway. Can't finish the game early.
Right.
That was a bit of a long-winded explanation. I probably could have done that in half the words. Yeah, so traveling to Yusnaan gets you the GP ability Teleport, so you can now teleport between any hot points you've locked. And so,
at the expense of your EP.
Yeah. So currently we have Luxorion North Station and now Yusnaan Station.
So the first part is going to be a lot of running around. We're not really going to be seeing many fights for a while. But what he's trying to do here is to purchase a guard here, a garb, which provides him with the Blitz ability, which is going to be the strongest ability he has for a while.
Yeah, Blitz is a very strong ability in this game.
And now he's selling some of the items, some of the potions that he started the game with, plus some of the Phoenix Downs that he had purchased earlier to afford another garb that he'll pick up later.
Okay, so here we're menuing. This is the Velvet Bouncing Garb. He's putting some stuff on. Blitz is the main thing. And he also changed the weapon around. I tried to track which one it was, but I lost it immediately.
I want to say
it'll be the highest strength weapon.
Right.
Yeah, it probably is the Liberator.
You'll see a bunch of shiny items on the ground. I'm surprised he picked that up, but maybe that's in his skill route. Because the route I was running recently didn't even care about those things. But some of the items on the ground will be sold for gil.
Yep. Yeah. So the first part of Yusnaan, we're starting to get advancement, the main quest already. Right at the very start, he looked at a poster, and that gave him information about the Chocobo girls. It basically told him you can talk to them. Well, it gives you the secret words, I think, and then basically go around talking to all the Chocobo girls and getting fireworks from them, because we need fireworks later.
And those secret words? Meow meow choco chow.
Yeah, so right now...
I don't know what they are in Japanese, though, but in English they're meow meow choco chow.
Basically, we want to get back into the Patron's Palace, which was actually the area we did the tutorial in earlier. So talking to that guy at the gate is like, oh, there's a guy you can talk to and he gives you a ticket. You can get in the back way. And so we're like, sure, we have some money. Let's go buy a ticket. So he buys the ticket here, and then I believe he's going to just, go down here. So in this alleyway, there's a Chocobo here. An item that he may pick up. We'll see. Nope, looks not.
Nope.
Okay, so now he's going to teleport back to Luxorion.
So casually, you could just take a train back to Luxorion, but it's more efficient time-wise to teleport to Luxorion. as long as your EP is routed well enough that you can afford it.
Yeah, EP definitely ends up being used a lot more for teleport than anything else along the run.
Looks like he set up a backup save in case this doesn't work out.
Yeah, okay, so he's gonna... Yeah, okay. So, right here he's
So
killing these heretics.
the intended route here is to spy on these heretics and wait for them to arrive at a phone booth that's down the alleyway. But you can shortcut this by taking out the leader. In which case, Hope will say, maybe you could guess where they were going, and then you can just go straight to the phone booth.
Yeah. So that's part of the reason why we got Blitz. Blitz is, as in the previous games, an AoE physical attack. And so the strat for that fight is Overclock, Blitz, Blitz, Guard, Blitz, Blitz, Guard, Blitz, Blitz, Guard. Repeat until dead.
So the reason for the guard... Were you going to say that?
Yeah, you can take it, it's fine.
Sorry. I won't steal your thunder.
Okay, so the reason you do 2 and then guard is because the third blitz counts as a finisher blitz, and it throws all the enemies away, even in Overclock. So by doing 2 blitzes and then a guard, it means the enemies never get pushed back, so you can keep hitting them with the same blitzes over and over again. So there he's gone to the phone booth to advance Luxorion's main quest, picked up some shiny things, and I believe now he'll be heading to the South Station and taking a train to the Dead Dunes, most likely. Or maybe Wildlands. I'm not sure which order he's going to do these in.
Most likely he will finish. Well, I guess it depends on the route.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of variance here. Some people will go to the Dead Dunes to pick up a guard and start with some quest in the Dead Dunes. Some people will just go straight to the Wildlands and skip the Dead Dunes garb, which you don't really need to do this within the start of Wildlands, but it can help.
But basically, the next 2 things we'll be doing are getting Deprotect and D-Shell and fighting Chocobo Eater, but not necessarily in that order. So I think this is also the first time you see a Chaos Infusion area. Oh, right, the Seed Hunter, of course. So this is part of, buying the Seed Hunter card here is required for the 5th main quest, the one that spans across multiple areas. And that's also why we'll be trying to pick up at least 1 soul seed in this chaos area here. These areas kind of spawn randomly. Well, not really that randomly. The locations are pretty fixed, and they're usually time dependent.
There are some that have fixed spot like that. That Chaos Infusion spot will always be there between like 20 o'clock and 4 o'clock or something. There are some that appear randomly, more notably in the Wildlands. The Chaos Infusions are supposed to be like these terrible things that make enemies stronger and make you weaker and make your buffs and debuffs last shorter. But actually they are pretty good because they increase the gil you get from fights, they increase the EP you get, and increase the chances of drop rates and add some extra special effects to some of the items that you can get. So it's pretty nice, ultimately. So you should always look forward to seeing them. Ironically. Not in the speedrun, though. We don't really care about them.
Well, we care about 1. Maybe.
We care about 1.
Okay, so it looks like he's gone to the Wildlands.
Alright, so I think this is more my route, which is you go to the Wildlands to get the teleport spot, and then you go to the Dead Dunes.
Okay, clever.
But it doesn't really matter if you do that right away or not. Because this will enable him to warp there immediately at the start of day 3, but you also could have just warped to Luxorion at the start of day 3 and then take the train.
Yep.
But now we're going to the Dead Dunes, and most likely he's going to go talk... Well, he has to talk to this guy to...
talk to the...
Either talk to him or run past him, which will trigger the same cutscene, and then go over here to pick up Passion Rouge. Which is a nice and easy source of D-Protect and D-Shell on a garb, which will allow him to hit enemies harder when those effects get inflicted.
So it looks like he's also going to head towards Ruffian, I guess? Or is he just getting the first tablet? We'll see. But basically, this Dead Dunes area is a massive desert, as you may expect from the name. ironically enough. But it also has a lot of kind of warp locations from these cactuar statues that you can unlock as you go. It kind of will be conveniently to get some of them along the way now, because we'll need to come back to some areas later.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to activate the cactuar near the Gurengach, which he will use probably several days later. And then probably will turn around. There are, I believe, 3 different tombs that he has to enter to get tablets. And each shrine is pretty annoying because you enter it and go down a bunch of stairs, then you grab the tablet. You could backtrack, but that takes a lot of time. A lot of people will just either end the day or teleport once you get to that tablet. So 3 times we're going to run into a tomb to get a tablet and then basically quit.
Yeah, so either teleport out or end the day. So there he also picked up the Gale Strike ability, or Storm Blow as it's called in Japanese, I believe. I think it's a Gale Strike, right?
Yeah, that was Gale Strike in English. But I don't know what the Japanese to English translation is. Yeah. But that is a Pilgrim's Crux, which is going to be used to, I think, actually pick up the tablet.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, because it's locked behind a door that requires the Pilgrim's Crux.
Yeah, so these Pilgrim's Cruxes are like just keys lying around this area that unlock various doors lying around this area. So that we don't end up getting all of them, but we do need quite a few to progress the main story. So you'll see us kind of grab a few as we go along. Yeah, it looks like he's gonna try and end the day here. Well, he's going to Ruffian.
He set up the teleport for that shrine, and now he's running to Ruffian, maybe to start the Gurengach quest.
Yeah.
The Gurengach is like the first step of the main quest of Dead Dunes, because it proves to the leader that you are worthy enough of meeting with the leader, I think.
It's to prove your identity, basically.
Because only lightning can take down a Gurengach, apparently.
The power of the savior.
So this unlocks the Ruffian menu teleport spot, which is different than the cactuar teleport. The cactuar teleports, you can only teleport from a cactuar to a cactuar. But the Ruffian warp spot, you can warp from your menu or from the arc.
Yeah, so there he's hit the cactuar statue and talked to Adonis to start the Gurengach quest. So now he's probably going to teleport back and take the shrine, I think.
Yep, looks like it.
Yeah. It's going to be a bit tight on time here. It should be fun.
Yeah, he has enough time. This is my route, so yeah, he's fine. Before this run started, we weren't sure which route he was going to use or if it was going to be something that we hadn't seen before, but thus far it's pretty close to what I do.
Nice. It makes things a bit easier. Yeah, so there's the door that required the Pilgrim's Crux just now. And we're just gonna head to the bottom here, pick up the tablet, and then it should be about 6 o'clock. But if not, there's some fixed enemy spawns that we can use to escape from, and then advance the time past the end of the day. Yeah, looks like he's gonna need to.
So if you attack those skeletons, 99% of the time, you will get a fight. 1% you won't, and you'll wonder what happened, but... You attack them and then escape, as always, to take that hour penalty, which is what takes you to the end of day. And that wraps up day 3. 9 to go.
So it may seem like we're not currently doing much in each day, and that's really because we're not doing much in each day. The first couple of days are a lot of setup, and then there's a block of like 3 days in the middle where we just kind of do everything, and then chill out for the rest.
Then we get our beauty sleep. We sleep for like 96 hours.
But yeah, currently the kind of goal is to set up everything that we need to start taking down bosses. He's buying 2 more Warriors Potions, so he now has 3.
So the Warriors Potions provide bravery and faith, I believe.
Yes.
Which will make her physical and strength, or sorry, strength and magic stats. Physical and strength are 2 different stats in this game. No, strength and magic stats will go up in a fight when you throw the Warrior's Potion. The 3 that he has right now, if they're following my route, 1 will be used on the Chocobo Eater coming up in the Wildlands, and then 1 will be used on Cyclops in Yusnaan, and I believe the last one gets used on Caius, probably.
That sounds about right. Yeah, so it looks like heading to Wildlands, so hopefully either the setup they have doesn't run 60 FPS or he set it down to a fixed frame rate to avoid the Akasan Greens bug. That could be unfortunate otherwise.
Well, still looks pretty smooth for me, but we are a ways away from the Gasol Green segment, at least.
Yeah, there's a bit of time.
You can tell that this is on PC, though, because we have a pretty smooth screen here. On PS3 and 360, this area is very choppy.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because it's a very beautiful area. Or at least for the time, it was a very beautiful area.
Yeah. So, here in the Wildlands, again, starting to advance main quest. As we've kind of alluded to, the first thing we do is kill a Chocobo Eater. But first we're going to do a little bit of setup. So he's selling, I don't know, yeah, he's selling all those like random items by the look of it, and picking up a Woodland Walker, which is one of 4 elemental garbs that has Arrow Plus on it.
Right, it's not just Arrow, it's Arrow Plus, which is a garb exclusive ability. Its finisher ability is Arrow Ra.
Yeah.
And if you know nothing else about this game or get nothing else from this speedrun, you should know that Ra spells like Fyra and Lazara are the best for chaining and staggering an enemy in this game.
Yeah. And also, we kind of talked about finishes a little bit earlier, but basically every ability works in sets of 3s for the most part. So when doing Arrow Plus, if you keep casting it, you'll get Arrow, 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 Ra, and then Lightning will reset. Some abilities work in chains of 1, or rather don't have any specific finishes, like Light Slash. But for most things, it's 3. And I think for everything we use in the run, it's 3.
Yeah, for the things in the run. I think like the base spells like Fire and Blizzard, those are actually 5. But we don't see them much outside of the tutorial.
Right.
Because the raw spells are better.
Yeah, and there's also quite a few not really locations, but points in the run where we'll intentionally avoid using the finisher because it kind of slows the rhythm of the fight down a bit. Which is generally not a good idea. Especially when trying to stagger, because then stagger decay works against you.
So this is the Chocobo Eater here, and this fight is going to be the first of like several different similar patterns to fighting, which is you throw a potion to get your buffs, you work on staggering the enemy, and in this case, his stagger mechanic is basically when he does his chomp attack, you can stagger him really fast. So he's basically killing time until he does the chomp. Yeah. He didn't immediately open with the chomp, but he always does it, I think, on his 3rd attack, which was right there. So we get the stagger there. He also inflicted the protected D-shell, and the stagger effect provided unshelled, but we are still going to stick with Blitz because that's our most powerful attack. So the general pattern is to throw potions to get buffs, throw debuffs, stagger the enemy. Once the enemy staggered, overclock to take advantage of the bonuses from stagger, and then wail on the enemy with your strongest attack and win.
Yep, which is more often than not Blitz.
This will require that you have enough EP to be able to overclock, but we try to split the fights across the days so that the most difficult fights we approach with a full EP gauge.
Yep.
But in this case, even though we had a full EP gauge, we were restricted to only 1 overclock. I say we as if we're doing it, but we're not the ones doing this. But this guy here needs the 3 EP to be able to teleport later.
So, also it kind of went by really quickly, but there are some relevant drops you can get from that fight, and he did get a magnet, so we may see that come into effect later.
Oh, lucky and magnet drop, nice.
Yeah. Chocobo Eater can drop magnet or Lazara, both of which are pretty helpful to grab in a run if you get them, but they're not really necessary to complete things, they just speed things up a little bit later.
Magnet's a little more useful. Blizzara just means that you can skip a chest later that's about 10 to 15 seconds out of the way.
Yeah.
Blizzara, or not Blizzara, Magnet, though, will make 2 fights nicer.
Yep. Yeah, so here we go back to Canopus Farms, and our Chocobo is like chilling here now. And we have to help it out. And that's kind of the best. So talk to this guy, and he's like, yeah, you just need to feed the Chocobo everything you can get your hands on. And so we do that, pretty much. So talk to some random people, and they're going to give us things to feed the Chocobo. I'm probably talking to this guy. Oh no, not yet. Okay. So that. So most of these things we're getting from people like Soul Greens. Speaking to this person again gets us a side quest, which gives us access to use the Chocobo, the patches in the garden, I believe.
Right. So this side quest is sort of optional, but this will allow us to heal the Chocobo a lot faster. Now we're gonna jog over to the woods to the side, because the goal of the side quest is to pick up some fertilizer, which is found in the woods.
Yeah. So we've kind of just fed a couple of things to the Chocobo. We don't have anywhere near enough to actually get it up yet. So we're going to go to the woods and do some stuff with the fertilizer, and probably leave for the day, I think. But again, it's just kind of more setting up for later on at the moment.
So the shiny items that we talked about earlier, if you find them in the woods here, they have a chance of being a Gisal seed, I think, or wild seed, or what, I don't remember what the exact name is, but if you pick up 2 of them, you're in good shape, because then you can
skip a shopping trip.
Skip a shopping trip. And this one's a little more annoying because you go into the shop and then there's a tutorial about Libra notes that you don't care about because you just want to pick up these 2 seeds that cost like 10 gil each.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So here we go, there's these little shovel pot spots in the wood. And kind of rooting towards 4 of them, I believe. 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, I believe we're going to be getting 4. Or I would get 4, I'm sorry. I don't know what he could do. He could do 3 if he want. Older Reds used to do 3.
I got an unfortunate spawn though.
Yeah.
Fighting it? Yeah.
NPCs tend to be frightened of enemies in the area, which makes sense because they're enemies. Yeah. But unfortunately,
help when you have to talk to someone.
Right.
Yeah, so this guy here, we want to talk to for another side quest. You just kind of talk to him once, you talk to him again, and you give him fertilizer. And then he does some other stuff later.
So over here is Yogged Village, which will give us a warp spot for later, which is important. Mm-hmm. The village itself isn't important, but the warp spot is. I mean, in the game, it's actually a sort of cool spot because there's a lot of side quests. In the speedrun, we don't care about it.
It's just a helpful waypoint between 2 locations. Because this area is pretty big, so like manually running through it all the time would kind of suck.
And unlike Dead Dunes, we don't have nice Cactuar teleport spots. So it looks like he set the FPS to 30.
Yeah, he just did in the menu then.
So now we get to enjoy this game in half the frames.
But it's definitely.
But this bypasses the glitch issue.
Yeah. Also, something quick to note. You'll notice his main garb is changed to Woodland Walker. It actually does have slightly more ATV than Equilibrium. Like the gauge is slightly larger on the garb, which means we can run for slightly longer because that does affect the sprint.
Yeah. Sprinting for longer is generally better than sprinting for shorter. But yeah, for some reason 60 FPS in this game really breaks with certain things. And unfortunately, this is one of the few things that is not good for players, even casual players, because if you plant a fertilizer spot in 60 FPS, or no, if you plant a seed in a fertilizer spot in 60 FPS, there is a chance that it will glitch out and not give you anything, and furthermore, not even be interactable.
Yeah, it prevents you from using the spot again for the rest of the game, basically.
So you don't get an item, and you can't even use it to plant more things. So we don't really know why it happens in 60 FPS, but it does. And the fix for it is to simply set your game to 30 FPS from the menu, and you don't have to worry about it at all.
Yep. So now we've activated all 4 planting spots. We've got greens in all of them, and the greens take 6 hours to grow.
Yes.
Yeah, so here is just buying some more vegetable seeds, and then it'll be just kind of using the rest of this day to sleep and grow more gazelle greens. Or at least this next little section. You might do something else at the end of the day. It remains to be seen. Although I doubt it was 0 EP. Yeah, so talking to the innkeeper here not only lets us use the inn, but also gives us a fuzzy sheep milk to feed the chocobo. And every item you get has a different number of points it gives to the chocobo's healing. And so we kind of use as many alternate items as we can, because greens are the lowest amount. But it still requires 6 or 7 greens, I think, to heal the chocobo up as much as we need. Okay, so it looks like he skipped to the end of this day instead.
Earlier, the two of you were talking about different routes. Is there one definitive route that ends up being the fastest, or are they all just kind of up in the air?
It's all pretty up in the air. Timing stuff in this game is pretty awkward, because just of the sheer number of variances in movement and fight strats and subtle differences in menus, that really getting a handle on what's faster or not is pretty difficult.
Right, and it's not really like that one route is faster than another, really, because we're all doing the same things, just not in the same order, necessarily. Sometimes, though, like, someone will do a fight with lower stats as a result of doing something earlier or later than normal, which could make the fight slower, but maybe it paces better with the other things that they're doing. So it's really hard to say, like, what is the quote-unquote optimal route. For the most part, like, I would just say it comes down to preference to an extent.
Yeah. Like, there's also kind of different things, and like if you get certain drops, it benefits more routes other than others. So even if you could really kind of get a handle on which is faster just outside of that, then you have to take into account all the variances and that kind of stuff. It's a very kind of open game in that respect. We don't have it perfectly solved, and people come up with new routes all the time, which is part of really why this kind of community for this game is really great, because people aren't afraid to kind of try new things with the routing.
Would you guys say that you have a rather large community with the Final Fantasy XIII series?
It's a lot larger than some other
games.
People. Yeah.
At least for the entire trilogy as a whole.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who only run one of the games, or 1 or 2 of the games. But I think LR, at its peak, probably had like at least, like 6 or 7 active runners.
Yeah. There were a lot of people working on the game at one point, which was nice to see.
Yeah, and it's dropped off a little bit now, but there's still a lot of times on the leaderboard. A lot of people have kind of tried this game and got pretty good at it. And in fact, the new world record was set just a few days ago.
Nice. So we slept to 5. We slept to 5. For this free stream, we slept to 5. This person also slept to 5 in the game to pick up these greens, and then he's going to run over to the other edge of the Wildlands in order to pick up the Beloved's Gift, I believe is what it's called.
Yes.
Which is an item that will be turned in within a few days to complete a part of that fifth main quest.
Yeah. It's Arius village, I believe. But yeah, so the reason for sleeping until 5 is so that he can grab the item and then get into an encounter. And then by escaping, since it advances an hour but won't go past 6 o'clock, just moves it to the end of the day so he can go back to the Ark quicker. Although if he doesn't get an encounter, he can just wait, and then it doesn't waste too much time either.
This is actually the last time that we will be in the main part of Wildlands. From now on, we'll be warping into Yogd Village because that will be closer to the things we need to do later.
Yep. Or Wildlands Research Camp.
Right.
But we're kind of done with the Canopus Farms area for now, basically.
Right, yeah, that's what I meant to say. We're done with the Canopus Farms. I guess that Wildlands Research Camp is a big, wide open space, so...
Yeah, and this section...
Don't believe my lies.
The only relevant thing to the speedrun for this section is the item we mentioned earlier, which is just in this chest up here. There's also a couple of chests around here with some nice spells, but we don't get them in this category. Actually, I think Zero's route did at one point. There was a route that got the spell here at one point. Oh, it looks like he's actually teleporting.
I don't remember what spell is here. So if I think he warps to Luxorion, so I think that he's now going to set up for fighting Nowell, which will complete main quest 1. And he has everything he needs for it. One thing that he got that we didn't talk about was when he was in Canopus Farms, he picked up an in Fire potion and an in Thunder potion, which will give his Blitz attack the corresponding elemental affinity, which will be useful in 2 fights, one here and then one in main quest 2, because they are weak to the corresponding elements. Nowell in particular is weak to Thunder. So we will be using that in Thunder potion in that fight. We'll also inflict Deep Protect, and then we'll stagger, and then we're going to exploit an interesting thing. I don't know what to call it. It's an exploit. We're going to exploit an exploit.
Yeah, so elemental kind of resistances in this game are a bit different to kind of a lot of games. In a lot of games, elemental resistances are usually pretty discrete. You have like weak, normal resists, nullifies, repels, whatever. In Lightning Returns, it actually takes like a point system. So normal resistance is 0, I believe. And then weak is 100, and resist is minus 100, I think. Something like that. But if an enemy is already weak to an element, and then they gain more weakness to it, as it were, from stagger statuses, or from a spell we'll might get later on, or from you having like an end spell on you, you can just keep kind of increasing their weakness value. And so you can do way more damage, even on an enemy that's like already weak to fire. You can still keep stacking up your fire damage more and more.
Indeed.
As opposed to it just being like a hard limit of double damage. Okay, so at the end of the last day, he just slept at the inn to end the day by the seams of it. But he's now advancing to 3 AM, which is needed to set up the next part of main quest 1.
So coming up is a telephone booth, the same booth that we encountered earlier, and that will require a passcode, which is 4 digits and is randomized in each game, but it's actually randomized in a little fixed way. The first digit will be 1, 2, or 3. The second digit will be 4, 5, or 6. The third digit will always be 0, and the last digit is 7, 8, or 9.
Yep.
What he did was he checked one of the digits, because the 4 numbers actually appear throughout Luxorion, and you're supposed to go through the town and find them all. But he checked one of them, and it was a 4. So he knows that the second digit is 4.
Oh, whoops. Looks like he mismenued that.
I'm not exactly sure what that was about, but he knows the second digit is 4. He's going to guess the first and fourth digits.
Yeah. And you can just keep doing this over and over again. There's no penalty for it.
Yeah.
Just wastes a bit of real time, but doesn't really matter for the in-game clock.
If you get it wrong, that dialogue choice there actually says, like, do you want to try again, or do you want to force your way through? If you force your way through, you have to fight a Juggernaut. But I believe that is actually fought in easy mode, because it's obviously easier on easy mode.
Yeah. Okay,
I think one route does actually fight it, but
yeah, I think someone did at one point. It's not the hardest fight in the world to do. It's just kind of awkward with the setup we have, and faster to get the code right, obviously.
I mean, just get it right the first try. It's the joke that I always make. It's faster to not be wrong.
Yeah. As with most random things, just keep grinding runs till you get it.
Yeah,
but now we're in the
it's only
graveyard.
45 minutes, you know, get to this part, and then if you're wrong, just reset the run and start over.
I mean, people reset runs a lot later. Like, it's not that bad. And, well, I mean, this game has plenty of reset points already. But anyway, we have access to this graveyard section. We just kind of have to run through to the end and to witness a cutscene to, again, advance the main quest. Basically, the idea behind main quest 1 is that there's this group of people called the Heretics who have been killing people with pink hair, thinking that they're lightning, basically, because lightning has pink hair. And obviously failing to kill lightning, but instead managing to kill lots of people in Luxorion, and people are pretty upset about this for obvious reasons.
It's actually pretty dark.
Yeah, this game in general is pretty dark. There's a lot of pretty heavy stuff in this game. But anyway, we go interrupt them, and then we get this crest, and then we can teleport back to the North Station and head towards their base, and then that lets us in to go see their leader, and it's Nowell! So heading down into a different section of Luxorion here. I think we only have to go here once in the run. It's just for Nowell. Older routes used to go a different way into this area because there's a fire spell near the other entrance, but we don't use that anymore because it used to be required for the final boss, but we now have much better strats.
Now we're going to show this guard, the Crest of Etro, which somehow approves membership to the Fnatic gang. And it's not suspicious at all, especially since we're a girl with pink hair, you know.
We're obviously in disguise. It's an infiltration mission.
Yeah, we're just them all. Duh.
I spotted Nowell going after him. Hope's famous line. Oh no, Lightning's favorite line.
Yeah, the joke there is that in the English dub, like Lightning says that really fast, but monotone too. Like, I've spotted Nowell, I'm going after him. Like,
it's great.
Like, it sort of would make a little more sense in a game like FFX when like the dialogue has to be tied to like the character's lip movements. Like, so that's why Yuna says things in an awkward way, because the voice actor's trying to follow the actor's lips, but they're like, there's no lip to follow. We're not trying to like force time down or anything. For some reason, it's just said really fast for no reason. So we just make fun of that line.
Yeah. So there we picked up the battle axe. See, I'm doing it now as well. So the battle axe of Believer was picked up, which is a slightly different weapon. It does give a couple of interesting things, but mainly has increased stagger power, I believe.
Yeah, it increases the stagger ability of attacks, and that was equipped on the Woodland Walker to power up the arrow spells.
Yeah. So here's Nowell. Common pattern with this game, boss fights are fast, so I hope you're all paying attention.
But the usual pattern is to throw potions to buff, debuff, which on PC in this fight is a little weird.
Yeah.
And then stagger, and then overclock to win. Nowell actually has 2 levels of stagger. We're only going to do 1, although we are going to set up the other, and then we're not actually going to trigger it.
Yeah. That's kind of because the actual attack that does a stagger gains a damage boost, but you can't stagger Nowell with Blitz. So each Blitz is getting a damage boost for second stagger, but it's because we're never actually getting that second stagger. We just keep the multiplier. And he
second stagger is actually a launch stagger. So if we were to use, I'm just going to pretend that the runner's name will make a little more sense. If we was to, and now my English is terrible. If they were to use attack would turn into launch, and then Nowell would get launched into the air, which would be the stagger. But Blitz doesn't turn into launch. So the second stagger doesn't happen, but the game still thinks that you're at the stagger threshold, therefore you're staggering. So you get triple damage, which is the effect of staggering the enemy without actually staggering the enemy, without launching Nowell. So that's why Blitz started doing incredible damage there.
Yeah, and you also kind of see the first instance of stacking unprotected and protect in that fight, and deprotect in that fight. Because we cast deprotect on Null, and then the magical stagger we inflicted causes him to become unprotected. So we're gaining even more multipliers on physical attacks. This game is the speedrun, moreover, it's really about kind of maximizing those multipliers in short bursts and cashing out as quickly as possible. We also kind of mentioned that debuffs are a little weird on PC. It's because enemies' debuff resistance is changed on PC. Some enemies become resistant to debuffs, which means it takes 2 casts instead of 1, which is, really pretty arbitrary. But it also
it's a bit annoying.
The amount of time that the debuff lands for.
Yeah, the way that debuffs work in this game with their resistances, like it's the resistance of an enemy. I guess he's trying to escape here to kill time, which makes sense.
I would assume so.
The resistance of a debuff will determine how many casts you need to use in order to get the debuff inflicted, but it will also determine how long that debuff lasts. So if the enemy has a higher debuff resistance to the point that you have to cast it twice in order for it to land, it will also last shorter. So you'll have to cast it again sooner later to get it re-inflicted. It's not relevant against Null, but it will be relevant in a later fight.
Yeah. So there you see the first instance of using Chronostasis. This is an ability that takes 1 EP and freezes the clock for effectively 1 hour of in-game time, which is about 2.5 minutes. Actually, I think it's exactly 2.5 minutes. I believe 1 in-game minute is 2.5 seconds in real time. And so that just kind of gives the runner a little bit more leeway to get where they need to get and do what they need to do before hitting the end of the day, while also being able to set up a quick end of day and not needing an encounter to do so.
I believe this is the only time that Chronostasis gets used in the speedrun. But Chronostasis is like, I recommend that people who are playing this casually and freak out about the time limit actually use Chronostasis. Because it
gives you a massive buffer.
Like, people always freak out casually about the time limit in this game, but it's actually really lax. And with Chronostasis, it's even more lax, and it's really easy to keep Chronostasis going. You just have to be able to restore your EP.
So that I picked up a Blizzard, I think, level 2 Blizzard or level 3 Blizzard. Oh wait, no, is it Blizzard?
That was in Frost.
Yeah, that one.
Right. Blizzara is over here.
Yeah.
So if we had gotten a Blizzara from the Chocobo Eater, we would be skipping this item right here, but it's not a big deal.
Yeah. So we didn't pick up Blizzard there, we picked up an accessory that gives auto and frost.
Yeah, so this will provide us with Ice Elemental, or Ice Affinity to the Blitz attack, so we will utilize that to do more damage with the Blitz. And then the very last thing that's going to happen here is we're going to start the main quest 5 officially by talking to Sazh over in this ship thingy.
The downed airship. I'm trying to quickly look up the name of that accessory.
So he's really hoping that he can do this all before 6 o'clock happens. But I think it's going to be, it's a little too tight, so he's going to have to use the Chronostasis.
Yeah. It's a little bit unfortunate, but it's kind of one of those just micromanagement things that you have to make sure you do not run out of time here, because that messes you up more than... Like, it's always a lot worse to run out of time on a day than it is to finish early.
So with Saz's quest, we have to find 5 fragments. One of them happens to be right outside.
How convenient.
So 4 to go.
It's also the only chest that has a cutscene skip in the game.
For each fragment that you find, there's a cutscene associated with it where Lumina talks to Lightning about something, and there's actually a lot of ways to actually skip the cutscene with Lumina before the cutscene actually starts.
So yeah, there you go. So you kind of just go into, well, I got another encounter to spawn, which will always be me and Ecton, because it's between 4 AM and 6 AM, and then just escaping to end the day. And that's, yeah, so there we go. 3 days down, 1 main quest completed. Well, 4 days down. I don't know. I'm lost track already.
N days down. Where N is the number of days.
12 minus N days to go.
Is it okay if I tell everyone what they're watching here real quick?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Awesome. So for those of you who are just tuning in, this is the RTA in Japan 2 marathon. It's the 2nd annual live speedrunning marathon in Japan. You are watching the English language restream hosted here on twitch.tv/speedgaming3. Speed Gaming also hosts a variety of speedrun events, marathons, and tournaments. So to show your support, please follow all 4 Speed Gaming channels, commentators.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah, anytime.
Okay, so we've headed back to the Dead Dunes now. And you may remember way back on the first day, or technically the second day, whatever, when we came back here the first time, kind of set up a side quest. And so here we're teleporting to Ruffian, then using the cactuar statue to get to this place, which is called Near God's Wrath. We can now go fight the Gurengach and advance the main quest for the Dead Dunes. The Dead Dunes main quest is probably the longest, just in terms of how many things we have to do, so it gets split across like multiple days as we can kind of have convenient points to do a couple of things and then go somewhere else. So this Gurengach, using mainly arrow skills again, I think debuffs, and then the stagger effect on this guy, it's actually daze. So if you were paying very close attention, that first blitz actually did double damage because the enemy was dazed.
Daze is a very temporary effect that freezes the enemy and makes you do double damage, but only like for the first instance.
Yeah.
Now, believe it or not, that was actually not the main reason we went here. I mean, we did have to do that, but I keep saying, wait, like, we're doing this.
It's fine, it's fine.
Because I want to do this.
The global LR community.
The real reason that people are here is that we are going to farm for a specific ability called Imperil.
Or as it's known in the Japanese version, weak.
Or as many people tend to say, screw this thing! It is a 15% drop from a Desert Sahagin.
Yes, so assuming we can get the correct encounter.
So first we have to get the Desert Sahagin spawned. And one of the nice things about Chaos Infusions, again, ironically nice, is that it always forces a new spawn to appear.
There we go.
So we can utilize it to get the Desert Sahagin. And then if we fight in the Chaos Zone, the drop rate gets tripled, I believe. Or I doubled or tripled, so...
Increased. I don't remember.
It's increased by some factor, so it'll make it more likely to get that Imperil drop, but it is not guaranteed. Yeah. When you beat the enemy, you hope to see a crystal appear. A crystal means an item was dropped. There's the crystal, and then you look at the list of items to see if you got the Imperil.
That looked like a deep protect.
Unfortunately, it was not Imperil. So
and he's reloading, so it probably wasn't an Imperil.
Yeah. So the nice thing about fighting that Gurengach, though, is it sets the autosave location to that spot. So you don't actually have to manually save to reset the Chaos Zone. Or, in some older routes, get the Desert Sahagin, but then fight outside of the Chaos Zone, which makes you lose the bonus drop chance, but keeps the Chaos Zone there so you can respawn the Desert Sahagin more likely.
Yeah. And this is unfortunately completely RNG, and is almost definitely the heaviest reset point in this game for runs. It's probably the worst part about this speedrun is having to farm Imperil, because Imperil itself is incredibly strong and not optional, realistically.
Well, it looks like he actually just loaded a save that already had Imperil.
Okay.
To cheat the system. Okay. I mean, it makes sense because it's a marathon, I guess. Ish. I don't know.
Yeah, he's already got Imperil on this phone.
I mean, Imperil could take anywhere from 2 minutes to 30 minutes to get, so...
Well, to infinite minutes, because you never guarantee the chance.
Yeah, infinite minutes, yeah. We could be here until Saturday at 3 p.m.
Until the actual end of the world.
We could be here until RTA in Japan is over, and then the rest of the runners in the marathon are annoyed at lightning returns.
Yeah, so I can agree with that call for a marathon setting.
I would have tried it like 5 times and then
Yeah.
gone with a backup save, but it's, I mean, as long as it was made clear.
Yeah.
So
what Imperil does, kind of briefly mentioned it, but Imperil decreases all elemental resistances on an enemy by some number of points. I don't remember the exact numbers. I'm going to try and find this.
I believe it increases elemental resistance by 50 percentage points, or decreases it, or whatever the corresponding thing is. So, like, if the enemy doesn't care for an element, like, say, takes 100% fire damage, and you cast Imperil, and now the enemy now takes 150 percentage points of fire damage. If the enemy resists fire, is like 30% fire, and you cast Imperil, now fire does 80% damage. If the enemy takes 300% fire damage and you cast Imperil, now the enemy takes 350% fire damage.
Yeah.
So regardless of whether the enemy is currently weak to or resists the fire, casting Imperil will increase fire damage. So in any fight, it is useful to cast Imperil. And I never actually personally did the math on this, but I remember Neviatz, who was a runner for this game in the past, mentioned that Imperil saves like 2 minutes in the final fight alone, although that was with an older route where the fight was about like 6 to 7 minutes. I don't know how much time it would save with the current physical strats, but
Arth did make a route for it at one point, and it was about 4 or 5 minutes slower overall, but considering Imperil can take you an uncapped amount of time for marathon
right,
settings,
on average
if
it'll
you
be
don't wanna
faster,
reset, then...
but yeah. Just get Imperil on the first try. I mean, it's faster to just not have luck.
So yeah, talking to Chocolina there, I'm giving Chocolina the beloved gift picked up a couple of days ago, or whatever it was. And that's another soul fragment for main quest 5. But now that we have Imperil, we're pretty much set up ability-wise for the rest of the bosses in the game, except the final one.
Correct.
So they're picking up a Wolf's Emblem, I believe it is, which increases strength by some number. Basically, we'll be picking up some optional stuff to, like, some optional accessories to try and buff physical damage, because we will be using almost exclusively physical abilities for damage in the rest of the run. So increasing our strength is, a good idea. But right now we're heading towards the Sneaking In special, I believe it's called. I don't remember the exact name.
Yeah, I don't remember it either.
Basically, it's the next kind of trigger for Yusnaan's main quest.
This segment is actually pretty tricky because literally this is the only part in the game, I guess, other than like the few segments where time was that tight, where time is tight. He can only afford to escape 2 fights because he has to reach a firework merchant before 2030, I think, or 2130.
Something, yeah, I don't know.
Because if he arrives there too late, the merchant will have already fired his fireworks and he won't be able to pick them up. So,
and you need a fixed number of fireworks to advance the quest, and since we want to do it today, then we don't want to have to wait until tomorrow to get the fireworks.
now that enemy he just dodged, the hoplite, is the worst enemy in this section because he will hit you if he wants to hit you.
Yeah.
So it's pretty fortunate that he managed to evade them pretty easily.
Yeah, this section has a really high encounter rate, and kind of as we said, because time is tight, you want to avoid getting into as many encounters as possible. Because escaping or fighting them is slower than just running away.
And there he picked up some bravery potions, which I believe is the... Well, I guess he's going to pick up some more potions later, too. But now he has at least 5 different potions that will inflict bravery.
I just realized I'm really behind. I have now caught up a bit on the stream.
Oh.
Yeah, so the end of this section is the next kind of mini-boss. Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gertrude.
He's choosing to fight this guy.
Desmond, sorry.
I believe you can easily stagger him by perfect guarding his attack.
If you can perfect guard it.
So it looks like he was going to fight it and then realized he could just use a second escape on that, but now he can't escape.
Yeah, I think it might also be because the dash is a fixed length and he pushed himself slightly too far out of range, so he didn't actually get to guard the attack.
Oh.
Like the active frames had already stopped by the time it pushed him. Okay, so the fight here is Cyclops. And Cyclops is weak to ice. I believe. Is it ice? Yeah, I think it's ice. Ice or arrow.
I believe ice. So the Infrost is really nice.
Yeah,
Imperil will make it. Will make the ice make you do even more damage with the ice, but it's already naturally weak to ice, which is nice.
Yeah, and the nice thing about this fight is once you start damaging him past a certain point, then he just does this kind of rage attack thing. And it doesn't really do anything, but it makes him take more damage, so you can just stomp him a lot easier.
I mean, it does increase his strength, but it also makes him take more damage, so...
Yeah. And that's also a second fight that can drop Magnet if you didn't get it earlier, but he already had it. The runner already has it, so it doesn't matter for this case.
Or he had it, but then he loaded a save that probably doesn't have it. So,
yes,
who knows?
That's a very good point. So you might not get to see Magnet strats. But yeah, now we just have to run back out of this section to the main part of Yusnaan. But the real reason we're here, and we did this in the first place, is so we can get the ID card, which will let us get into the VIP area, or whatever it's called.
The Augur's Quarters, I believe? Got hit by the gremlin, but gremlins are actually easy to take out.
Yeah.
The stagger condition for gremlins is to attack it with a physical attack when they are queuing up a spell.
And they do that a lot. And we have Blitz.
They do it a lot, but then like the stagger doesn't actually really do anything except boost your damage with that attack. So
yeah, so now we're back in the main part of Yusnaan. Can see some fireworks. And now we can go into the August Quarter. And talk to the director of the show, who will tell us we need to get some fireworks. Or will tell us to talk to someone to tells us to get fireworks.
basically we are going to
Star in the show.
star in the show. I don't remember the exact reason for starring in the show, but we realized that we can blow up the wall blocking the palace with fireworks.
Yeah, we basically convinced the director of the show that he needs to put as many fireworks as he possibly can into the show because it will look amazing, and the real reason is to just blow everything up. But he believes us, so it's fine. So that was the show director, and then here's the pyrotechnics director. He'll tell us to go get 10 fireworks.
But first, we'll run up here and we'll get this item, which I believe... I don't remember the exact name, but I believe it gives you faith for 30 seconds at the expense of costing HP.
That sounds about right.
So unlike the auto and frost accessory we have, the bravery and faith and protected shell spells, they're accessories that provide those buffs also come with an HP cost. So every time you start a fight, you will lose 5% of your HP, but you'll start with that buff.
Thorn of Will, it's called.
Aha.
And the ability is tied to the faith.
Right. They're Thorn of, as Melodia said.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the one that provides bravery is really out of the way, and we won't get it. He will also not get it, but we won't get it either.
No one's getting it. Yeah, so going to the armory here. Is this the armory? Yeah. So
Forge, I believe.
Right, that. So selling some stuff we don't need anymore, and buying some big weapons. Which is a Kikuchimonji and something else. Dragon Gauntlet, I believe it is.
Sounds right.
Armor piece which increases strength. Yeah, so they're putting Kikuchimonji and the Dragon Gauntlet onto Velvet Bouncer because that's our main strength main strength garb. Woodland Walker is just getting some better weapons put on it, and the same for Passion Rouge, just kind of doing stuff around. Also putting the Nowell's weapon, Shadow Hunter, on one of the garbs for... Wait, no, hang on.
I believe Shadow Hunter gets equipped. I don't remember what it... Like, I think it also provides a stagger boost, like the Battle Axe of the Believer.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I was thinking of a pretty different thing than Beatdown, but that's not used in this route. I confused myself for a second.
The nice thing about those weapons that I don't think gets seen, really, is that it changes Beatdown into Jump, which is a really powerful attack and can instantly stagger Xaltis, but we won't see it.
Yeah, it doesn't get used in this route. A couple of routes across the years have done that, and also things for other categories do that, but I don't think you will see it today. There's a couple of things like that across the game where certain abilities will get changed into certain other things when you have specific effects, either on abilities or on weapons or on garbs. It's a pretty nice system.
So we have gotten the 10 fireworks we needed. The guy we talked to, the one of the fireworks guys, that was the guy who was on a time limit. And so the rest of this segment isn't as time tight, but once we enter the palace, time will be tight again.
Yeah. So
once it gets to be 3 o'clock.
Yeah, the actual show starts at 3 a.m. So once we get all the fireworks we need, we have until 3 a.m. to do whatever. Or talking to the director will advance the time until 3 a.m. for us. But then, since obviously the day ends at 6, we only have 3 hours to do the rest of the stuff we want to do in this day. So there will be some use of chronostasis coming back. So yeah, here's a really cool cutscene where lightning's into play, and then... Oh wait, not yet.
Not yet, we need the dress.
Forgot about that.
We need the Midnight Mauve.
So you have to go do some other stuff first. This section is pretty tedious, just having to go back and forth to the Orbis Quarter constantly, but there's not really any better way to do it, which is a shame.
Yeah, we have to return all the way. We have to backtrack all the way back to the Champions Quarter, which was where we stopped and got the last firework and turned around. But we have to go all the way back there because of the Colosseum. And unfortunately, there is not a faster way of getting there. It might be slightly faster, like, you know, a few seconds to warp to the train station and then go to the Champions Quarter from there, but it's... Or maybe it would be faster to just warp there earlier and then collect the fireworks, but that also screws up your EP, so it's...
Yeah.
It's just in an awkward spot, and there's no better way of getting there than to do this all again. And we can't multitask and get the fireworks and then get the Midnight Mauve, because you have to get the fireworks in order to trigger the Midnight Mauve quest, so it's just annoying.
Yeah, the closest we came to cutting out that movement was when we found a duping glitch, which is not very consistent, which you could do on the fireworks. And if we could dupe sufficient fireworks, then you wouldn't have to do that trip to get a load of fireworks. You could just dupe all the ones you need, but...
Right, the dupe in question is that if you skip a cutscene, I believe like on the literal exact frame that the conversation starts, you get the firework, but the game doesn't count it as you having gotten it from the Chocobo chick or the
it doesn't like
Choco
trigger
girl or whatever. So like you get the
NPC.
firework, but the NPC still has the firework, and you can talk to the NPC again and get the firework.
And you can actually identify if you've got it because you won't get the Makote dress when you talk to the final Chocobo chick. So it's kind of amusing to see it happen by accident sometimes. But yeah, the first fight in this area was the 5 gremlins. It didn't have Magnet, so you didn't get to see Magnet, but it's a very simple fight anyway. You just kill everything. It's not really anything to explain, really. This fight's pretty much the same, just kind of debuff, stagger, kill. Like, these first 2 fights are very simple. The next 2, however, are a bit more interesting.
Yeah, we're gonna fight Xultus, who we haven't fought since the prologue, but the prologue fight was actually an easier version of Xultus. But we are way more equipped now than we were back in the prologue, so we will be able to not only stagger him, but debuff him and exploit his ice weakness to really wail on him.
Yeah, so not only do we have the Blizzard spell, we also have the Auto Enfrost. And once we get stagger, he becomes deprotected, or unprotected. So there's a lot of damage we can do. So yeah, the strat here is get debuffs, do Blizzaras, which are the better ones, as we talked about. Some Blizzards just to kind of fill the gap, get the stagger, and then go in with Blizzards.
There's a very subtle thing in there that the last Blitz actually staggered Xultus and did extra damage. And this was discovered entirely by accident by a runner called the Midget, who accidentally did 1 extra Blizzara after the first stagger, and then proceeded to Blitz, and then surprisingly staggered with a Blitz. It actually cuts out a couple seconds and saves on ATB.
Yeah, and that's because Xultus' second stagger is triggered from hitting its head, while the first stagger is active. But the actual benefits of that weren't really thought through until it happened by accident one day. Nice little accident. Also something to note about the Fawn of Will that we got earlier. That HP drop triggers every time we go into a fight. So you'll actually see that now as we go through encounters, the HP amounts will actually drop progressively every time we get into a fight.
It won't matter too much unless we take too much damage in fights, which the Anubises that will fight in the palace could potentially do damage if you don't guard well, but that's the only real concern. So the first Xultus fight was to get the Midnight Mauve. The second Xultus fight was actually a part of Main Quest 5, and that was to get a fragment for Sazh. So we actually did do some multitasking there.
Yeah.
And
those 2 fights are identical. And since the second one isn't actually locked behind doing the first set first. So if you accidentally say no to one of the 3 earlier fights, you can then say yes to doing the special fight and fighting the other Xultus out of order if you want to. It doesn't benefit you at all, it's just like an interesting little thing that's possible.
Yeah, and you could have also done it when you were getting the fireworks, but that's actually a little less movement efficient because you have to move a few steps over from the fireworks. But you could have done it then if you wanted to.
So now we have Midnight Mauve, and this garb is great.
He did not color it at all. So he's using the default colors, which is fine. It's a nice dress. Some runners do take the time to color it because they prefer lightning being in a different color than deep red, I guess. I take the time to color it in like disgusting colors like orange on white or something, just to mess with that mentality. Yeah.
So this garb is basically going to be the main garb for the rest of the run now. It's really good because it has a really high amount of ATB, and it has Fire on it, and it's a pretty high level Fire. And as we mentioned earlier, level 2 spells are the best for like staggering in the game.
It also costs less ATB than the usual Fire. Like a Fire that you pick up on the field or drop from an enemy costs 25 ATB bars, which I believe like at this point he has about 140 to 160 on his garbs. But the ones on Midnight Mauve cost 21, which is a small difference, but can add up.
Yeah. We also got a weapon there, which is the Femme Fatale, which increases debuff duration, I believe.
Debuffs? Is that like when you say I'm going to inflict a debuff, but you're actually bluffing? You're debluffing?
Sure. But
sorry, but my debluff resistance is really high. I have to work hard. Sorry.
It's fine. But I don't think that weapon actually gets used in this route at all.
No,
it's pretty nice
in one of my older routes, I did put it on for the final day, but it doesn't really matter because like the garb you would equip it on is the one who has like the issue is Imperil's duration, but we would equip it on the garb that has deep protect, so it doesn't actually help.
Yeah. But yeah, so now we're back in the Patron's Palace, which is the very same area as from the tutorial, so you may recognize this if you were here at the start of the run. And we have to run through here to get to the end of main quest, whatever number it is, and we'll call it 2, sure.
2, yeah.
And find our next boss, which is going to be Snow. And if you were paying attention, we just got a garb with fire out on it, and if you know Snow, you might assume that he is Ice Elemental, or the Ice Elemental boss in this game. You would be correct.
Maelstrom, there's Snow way that is Snow. That is a stupid pun from years ago.
So as you may imagine, getting the Midnight Morph here is pretty convenient, considering we're going to fight Snow next.
He also picked up one of the purple items, the purple dots, which are Chaos Seeds.
Soul Seeds.
Or Soul Seeds, right, yeah, that's what they are. He only picks up one because you only need one. In general, you would want to pick up as many as you can because you actually get rewarded certain items and they sell for a certain number of money when you go trade them into the Soul Traders. But for Main Quest 5, you only need one.
Yep. Also, yeah, in that area, Azultis does spawn again, if you really want to fight another Azultis, but we can just run around it this time. It's not a forced fight.
Yeah, this is the prologue section, but now we get to go past this door.
Yeah.
You'll note that there is a bunch of chaos infusions popping up throughout the section.
Snow's having a bad day.
The story is actually that like Snow is like trying to hide all of these chaos infusions behind this palace, but they all seem to go away once you beat Snow, which I'm not really too clear on, but
yeah,
the side effect of it is that you're going to constantly run into enemies and you're going to have to evade them, which most of them are pretty easy to evade except for the birds. But
yeah, I believe it's something along the lines of like because Snow made himself the sea again, and he's coming pretty close to like failing his focus, and so he's like generally pretty upset or whatever, and it's like the chaos is the manifestation of his whatever, I don't know, some dumb thing. Don't get me wrong, I do like the story in this game, but the explanations for some things are a bit poor, shall we say.
Indeed. So I don't really want to speak too much about this, but this game in general has a really open map in terms of its 4 main areas, but the dungeons are just pretty repetitive, winding corridors.
Okay, buying a high potion there just for safety. Oh, he's gonna use it now. Okay, that's fine. Having a bit of a health boost here is not a bad idea because there is a forced fight we have to get to before we get through to Snow anyway.
Also, here time is tight, because not that it like super matters in terms of this section, because like if you were to start over on the next day, whatever, you can still go to the end and fight Snow. But right after this, they're going to probably go over to get a fragment from the Mughal village, which is only open during the night hours.
Yeah,
so.
6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So having to advance the next day makes a bit of a mess of the next couple of days route-wise.
So these two Anubises guard a door, and sometimes a chaos infusion spawns in this section, which is it increases their HP and makes the fight last longer, which is annoying, but
it's almost better in some ways because it gives you the EP boost as well.
True.
Okay, there we go. You got both of them with guards, so that'll be a quick fight. Yeah, very nice. That was probably the best Anubis fight I've ever seen anybody do. Normally it's a complete horrible mess. But the reason we had to do that was because we got to the door where Snow's hiding behind and it's locked. So we've gone to where Snow lives. And he basically sleeps in a cage. And we go there and you grab his pendant, or Sarah's pendant, whatever. The pendant from the original 13 game. And then we're going to run back to the door and use it to open the door.
This convenient drop-down hole.
Yeah, and these convenient boxes. Yes, and now we're right back by the door again.
And now we'll fight Snow. So just like every other fight that is pretty pretty special, we're going to throw potions for buffs, we're going to throw debuffs, we're going to stagger with Fyra, and we're going to then overclock and kill with a bunch of blitzes.
Yeah, it's actually interesting.
Now this is actually Snow plus,
yeah,
because we're fighting him on day 6,
I believe. Yeah, because Nowell does on 5 and Snow. I don't know. Anyway, but whoops.
Yeah, I think he overclocked a little too early.
Yeah. So the interesting part about Snow is that he has like 2 different forms. It's not as straightforward as the other kind of boss fights. Like Nowell and the others are pretty straightforward, but Snow has like a form where he does magicals and a form where he does physicals, and you can like randomly choose between them. And it kind of slightly alters the fight strat. So there he was doing physicals because he then did recast, which if you hit him with a magical attack, he'll do that physical charge, and that's generally the worst of the 2 to get. But the fight's still easy, so. I guess also worth noting that stat growth in this game mainly comes from completing quests. So you would have noticed then, after beating Snow, a screen popped up and we got like +1 EP, plus 300 HP, plus some amount of strength, plus some amount of magic. And plus, I think some amount of base ATB, I think is the other one.
Yeah, I believe so. It might also increase the number of items we can, or recovery items we can store, but I don't remember.
I think that's usually in place of EP.
Ah.
I think it's one or the other usually, except 5, which gets, I don't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little weird compared to most Final Fantasies where like you level up. In other Final Fantasies, you level up by grinding against enemies, getting experience, and leveling up. In this game, you level up by doing side quests and main quests. So there's no real direct advantage of fighting enemies, but you do get a bunch of ability drops from them that you can then use to level up your abilities to
random items
do more damage. But regardless, in the speedrun, the only like farmed ability we're using is Imperil. So like all the abilities we will be using are coming from guards.
Or chests.
Or chests.
Yep, so here, finishing up the day by going to the Mughal village and doing a little side quest here. Basically a lot of dryads are annoying them. So we're going to take out the dryads, and conveniently, the dryads are weak to fire. You can sense a pattern emerging here.
Dryads are super annoying.
Yes. Agreed.
Because they can summon reinforcements.
Yeah.
The single dryad is super easy. The 2 dryads is okay. The 3 dryads, really annoying. But we can cheese it a bit by using an overclock and then blitzing.
Yeah. So once you take them down past a certain amount of HP, the next move they do will be to summon more Dryads. And normally it isn't too bad, but the issue is that Fire has a slight AoE effect to it. So especially on the free Dryad one, if you try and use Fire, the splash damage from the Fires can be enough to trigger the second one to be over the barrier, and then you just kind of have a bad time. Oh, he's using a second Overclock here, interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Probably doesn't. Probably has gotten trolled in that fight several times.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the EP for it, it's not going to get used today.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I guess he used one fewer Overclock on Snow or something.
Yeah, I think he only used 2. Wait, do you know? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm not sure how that second Overclock happened.
Yeah,
but it works out super well. So,
yeah. So grabbing an item here. I believe that's the Healer's Law.
Yeah, I think so. I just don't remember what Healer's Lore does. Does it?
It increases the recovery amount on recovery items.
Okay.
So it improves potions and stuff.
And with that, this day is over. Yeah. You got the Moogle fragment, I believe, which was the main reason for doing this. That is
for another soul seed or soul fragment for main quest 5.
Right. The soul seed plus the Moogle fragment will lead to the fragment for Sazh.
And again, getting into an encounter at the end of the day is the quickest way to do it, rather than waiting for the day to end naturally. So just to recap, we've done 2 main quests. We've done Yusnaan's main quest and Luxorion's main quest, and we've collected a fair number of soul fragments for main quest 5. But we still got a couple to go. We also still have the main quest in the Wildlands and in the Dead Dunes to do.
And we've actually done a significant portion of that main quest. The only part that's left is to get to the temple. I don't actually know what its exact name is, but the only way of getting to that temple is getting a Chocobo to glide, which conveniently we've fully restored the Angel of Valhalla. So that's what's going to happen next.
Looks like it.
So from now on, time doesn't matter. So, which is convenient because this temple is filled with a bunch of clans that will hit you from a football field away. So,
yeah. This day is effectively entirely so. The day starts at 6 AM, and then you pretty much have until like 9 or 10 PM to do this dungeon, and it doesn't take that long just from movement. A lot of it is just the encounters.
Yeah.
And they really troll, so we set aside a lot of free time just in case for this dungeon.
But yeah, we warped to Yogg Village for the last time. Not going back to the Moogle Village, but this time to...
Porta.
Yeah. So yeah, so the next several minutes will just be a bunch of running around.
Yeah, this day is a little less dense, but then kind of there's a lot of stuff left to do in the Dead Dune still to set up for that main quest. There's a few fights along the way that we have to do.
Yeah.
And then it's on to the end of the run.
That's an Aster Protoflorian there.
Ooh,
when he spawns there, it's pretty annoying, but it's fine.
Yeah. I wonder if you actually could have made it over.
It's tough when there's a big enemy in a small corridor like that, but it doesn't matter. Just escape. Yeah, he's going to pick up 2 Inero potions, or Enfrost Inero?
Enfrost Inero, I think.
Enfrost 2 Ineros.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. You have one for Caius, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, one of the Ineros will be used on the main quest 4 boss. And then the other 2 will be saved for the final boss. Based on what element he chooses to align with.
Yeah, and Enfrost and Inero are perpendicular, as it were, since Fire and Blizzard tend to go together and Thunder and Arrow go together. So we can cover both kind of directions, as it were. We'll talk about that more a bit later when we actually get to the boss fight.
This is the best side quest because it's just like you complete it just by going to the main quest. It's
pretty much gives you like no reward though.
Yeah. Basically, the guy wants to see a chocobo flying in the air before he dies, which is convenient because we're using the chocobo to get to the temple.
Indeed. So now we're heading to the goddess's temple, or whatever it's called. And this is the kind of dungeon for this area. It's kind of interesting, but also kind of tedious. Kind of like the other dungeons in this game, it's a neat idea, but just a little bit too long. But the music's good here. Although I don't think you guys get to hear the music, unfortunately. But basically what happens is you go in on the middle floor of this temple, and then some stuff happens and you fall all the way down to the bottom, and you have to climb all the way back up. And there's a lot of plot exposition that happens here about the chaos and what it is and why it is. We're just gonna gloss over that.
I mean, you'll note that the HP bar is going red and that lightning is losing HP, but it's a very low value that doesn't really matter.
Very low amount and very slowly. Hope likes to make a big deal about you losing health, but it's like 3 HP every couple of seconds in game.
Yeah, like
which is nothing.
0.01%.
0.1%.
0.1%. I can math. 0.1% every 3 seconds.
Yeah. But basically, the gimmick here is that Yules everywhere, or that not one Yule, but for different iterations of Yule are everywhere. If you're confused, go play 13.2 and then still be confused. But basically, by talking to each of them, it generates a few platforms that you can then use to platform your way across different areas and then progress. But this game, although it has decent movement, its platforming is not the greatest, so a couple of the jumps are kind of awkward.
And just like every other NPC, Yule will get frightened by enemies in the vicinity, so these dryads that appear here, I don't even think they're dryads, they're something else.
Monkeys, these things, so yeah.
They
I think they are dryads, actually.
Will stop Yule from being able to create platforms, so... Yeah, I think they are actually dryads. I was thinking... I think it's Gaunt in Luxorion.
It's Gaunt in Luxorion and Archangeli on the final day, but here it's still dryads.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of places where you really don't want enemies to spawn because it disrupts Yule, but apart from that, it's very much a case of, oh no, an enemy, whatever will I do? Just try and run past it. And then probably fail if it's a flan, but there's not really much you can do about it. But yeah, there's like 3 or 4 different kind of groups of enemies you can get here, and the worst is 2 ectopuddings. Which is just, I mean, hopefully we never see it, but if you do see it, you'll probably understand why it sucks. Oh, 2 ectopuddings?
Yeah, they are, but they're not really
passive. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty lucky. Basically, if they're active, you're not getting past them. Okay, so a couple more areas just to get through before we reach the end of this dungeon. You get a few of these kind of like squarish areas that are split into 2 sections with an enemy in the middle. Wow, so yeah, there you go. That's a perfect example of why ectopudding's pretty bad. And why we set up a lot of time, because you can just get constant ectopudding encounters. And you're just not getting past them.
And there's another bunch, and there it is.
Yeah.
Again, the in-game time doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, so... and every time we get into a fight, it does slightly chip away at our HP. just because not only do you get a bad, which decreases your HP by 5%, but also the Tide of Faith takes a little bit of a chunk out as well every time. Actually,
I believe this is Aroga that's here in this coming item ball. He's not picking it up. Okay. That will be useful against a Cactuar fight, but if you have Magnet, you don't need it.
But he doesn't have Magnet on this file.
Oh, we don't know if he has Magnet on this file. We just know he had Magnet earlier.
And we know he didn't use it in the Champions Quarter when he probably should.
Oh,
he had it.
This is a true statement. All right, he's not grabbing
so
it.
He probably doesn't have Magnet. But yeah, this dungeon has all 4 level 3 spells just lying around. We used to pick up Faraga back when we used a different strat for the final boss that required more spells. And some other categories still, well, some other routes or categories still pick up some more chests in this dungeon.
And there's also a spell that is called Element, which is actually a spell that encompasses all 4 elements.
It's a pretty good spell, actually.
That was only picked up because it had a chance of having a magic boost passive ability attached to it.
Yeah. For those of you who played this game and used the DLC, will know that there's a very powerful Elemental Star on one of the DLC garbs that pretty much breaks the game wide open.
Yeah, the Summoner's Garb is a pretty broken garb to have. Because its Elementa is super strong, and using it on the speedrun could save half an hour in a 2-hour run. Ooh, we missed that jump.
That's a bad jump to miss, because you have to go back through 2 sections.
The weird thing is that you can hold the sprint button down while you're doing these jumps. If you release the sprint button mid-air, it also slows down your movement in the air.
Yeah, you can and conversely, if you activate it in mid-air, you can slightly speed up your aerial movement. It's a bit strange. But it makes platforming awkward, as we kind of mentioned earlier. But luckily, that's the last bit in this area. We're now pretty much at the end of the dungeon. Just up these stairs and then round to the left. And now we have the next boss.
And we have Caius, who in casual play is a pretty difficult fight.
Yes.
In the speedrun...
yeah, so at the start of the fight, Caius will... So this is Incarnate Caius or whatever, so you can turn into Bahamut. Again, for reference, he's 13-2 and be more confused than you already are. But basically the idea is that he'll always use Mega Flare at the start of the fight. We don't want to get hit by Mega Flare, so we'll just kill him before he has a chance to use Mega Flare. Which is
and conveniently, we have 3 overclocks for that.
Yeah. And he's also not weak to any particular element, so we can just go end whatever. Bravery, Deep Protect, Imperil, Blitz, 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 and he's dead.
Yeah.
Easy.
Don't even have to stagger him. Fight's actually a really fun fight if you're trying for like a more straight up non-overclock fight.
Yeah, it's a really interesting fight once you get past Mega Flare. But in a speedrun setting, we don't want to do that because it sucks.
Like he has like a commando stance and a Ravager stance, and if you stagger him into commando stance, it helps with staggering into Ravager stance, which is more useful because it will provide you with I think like a debuff based on what spell he was using. But anyway, in the speedrun it doesn't matter, just kill him.
And that's also the end of the Wildlands main quest. So we'll only have to come back to Wildlands once, just to hand in main quest 5. But apart from that, we are done.
And hopefully he picked up the weapon, Chaos's Revenge.
That is a very good point. I didn't see if he did.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention. That was the extra flashing item on the ground after you beat the main quest. In this instance is Chaos's Revenge, which is a really powerful weapon, and it comes with the passive ability Quick Stagger, which will instantly stagger an enemy if they are 75% of the way to stagger. And it'll be very useful for several fights, namely the final boss. So it's kind of important to get it. But beyond just that, it also provides good stats, and it will be used in place of the Liberator, which I believe has been used this far. Or not the Liberator, sorry, the Kikwi.
Yeah,
Kumanji. I just call it the Kikwi because that's the first 5 letters. And now we have Fang.
Yes.
And if you
so
didn't know
it
that
turns
was Fang, she will have her name above her head at all times.
Yeah, it turns out the bandit leader is actually Fang. And the reason we had to go kill the Gurungash was to prove to Fang that we actually were the real lightning, not just some fake lightning. Some imposter.
And now you go from running around in the Wildlands dungeon to running around in the Dead Dunes dungeon.
Yeah. So this is by far the longest dungeon, because not only is it a huge massive tunnels, but kind of what happens progression-wise is that there's 3 tablets that we have to get from 3 different shrines on the kind of upper part of the Dead Dunes. So there's kind of a lot of trips going back and forward to not only progress the internal dungeon, but also get the other stuff. It takes a long time, basically. Yeah, you did get the weapon, I did go back and check.
Yeah, it'd be awkward if you didn't get that weapon.
Yeah, that would be... yeah. A problem.
Oh, Fang's actually in front. This is the part where I joke that, like, Fang somehow entered the dungeon before you could, because usually, like, for me, she'll appear as you're turning that corner, but it looks like she was in front of Lightning there. Which is weird.
Mm. It's definitely one thing that all the games in Shruti have in common, though, is teleporting NPCs.
Indeed. So this dungeon is a bit of a maze, and made more complicated by the doors that are locked by whether the hour is an even hour or odd hour. The purple doors are open on even hours and closed on odd hours, and the red doors are open on odd hours and closed on even hours. Which, for the most part, doesn't really, like, in terms of this route, doesn't really change much. Like, that first set of doors there, it's just like, all right, you either go straight or you go left and take a slightly longer route. But if you try to, like, clear the entire dungeon, you'll have to keep in mind, like, what doors are open when.
And there is one point deeper in the dungeon where we will have to get a specific parity of hour to go the way we want to.
Indeed.
Also, yeah, you can just jump through those guys instead of actually attacking them, which is nice because it removes the chance of having to deal with an encounter. The items in this dungeon are actually pretty nice. Like on this floor, there's a D-Protect and a D-Shell level 2, which are pretty decent abilities to have, not attached to a single garb.
Unfortunately, we won't be grabbing them.
Well,
and
we
he
very
won't
much don't need them in this run either.
Yeah, we already have Passion, or not Passion Rouge. Or is it Passion Rouge?
It's Passion Rouge.
Passion Rouge, yeah. I was thinking Woodland Walker for a second, but that was wrong.
Yeah, so there's a couple of these switches as well, which just open specific doors.
We tagged this Cactuar statue here because we'll actually have to warp back here later. Because behind that door is going to be the end of Main Quest 4, but to unlock that door, we have to set the 3 tablets in their spots in this dungeon, or use the 3 tablets in order to get pieces of the Pilgrim's Crux, or some crux. I don't remember what the exact name is. Pilgrim's Crux is a different item.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It's some sort of crux. I know, like, the individual items are called, like, the tip of the crux and the base of the crux, but I don't know what the actual crux is. But we need that full piece in order to open the final door.
Yep. Not sure. So down here is the first kind of sanctuary where you place a tablet. And the tablets aren't tied to specific sanctuaries, so it's not like we have to go to match them up. We just get the 3 tablets from wherever and then do just the 3 sanctuaries in whichever order. But that's kind of why we've already got 1 tablet before going into here, so we can do this one and then carry on.
think we already have 2.
Oh wait, do we?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because
we'll
the second
get
one's
this
after
one.
Imperil. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's the third one we don't have yet. Which is fine because the third one is actually back where the door is anyway, near the Cantor statue, so we can just place it later.
Right. And that one would sort of be like the first one you would probably go to, but we put it off for last.
Yep. So now we're just heading to the very far end of the dungeon for the other door. But first we have to kill a Gurungaj. Or rather, there's a couple of items we want along the way, so to get to them we need to kill... Oh, he's time manipulating. Okay.
Yeah, the parity of the doors coming up does matter. Not the ones immediately coming up, but in a bit.
Yeah, so here we want to stagger and then see that the dazed fire does so much damage. Like, he just melts. It's great.
Yeah, it's a bit easier than when we were doing it just after Nowell, because we have the stats boosted by Snow and Caius, and we also have the Midnight Mauve, which is great.
Yeah. And
Imperil too, so yeah.
And up here is a pretty important item, the good choice.
Is it good choice or best choice? No, it's good choice. It's
is
actually collector catalog, but the direct translation is good choice.
Yeah, it's great.
What it will do is... Yeah. What it does is it will increase the duration of the buffs you get from potions. So when you throw a Warrior's Potion, normally they would last 30 seconds. The Bravery and Faith on the Warrior's Potion will last 30 seconds, but with Good Choice, it will last 45 seconds?
I believe so, yes.
So...
Yeah, he also got some pretty nice abilities from that fight. Looks like he got
So these doors... these 2 consecutive doors are opened because it's an odd hour. If it was an even hour, they'd be closed, and you would be able to get to this segment without having... You'd have to wait for the next hour or to escape from an encounter to skip the hour.
Yeah. Yeah, so also from the Gurungaj fight, he did get a Poison Guard drop and a Medigard drop. And the Medigard drop is a yellow drop, which means it has a passive ability on it. While it's not a huge deal, some of those passive abilities can be pretty nice to have for the final boss. Just kind of makes things a bit easier because you can get like extended stagger durations or extra strength or extra magic or HP. Because abilities can have like little passive things on them that all add to the garb. So kind of getting those yellow drops while it isn't necessary can help a little bit. So it's always nice to see.
All right, so the second tablet there gets us the second piece of the crux. As soon as we pick it up, we're going to go back to Ruffian and get the third tablet because we haven't gotten that yet. Which is fine because we don't have enough EP for the anyway.
Yeah. So here we'll be handing in the soul seeds and the Mukul fragment we got earlier for another soul fragment for Daj. I believe this is the 4th of 5. We only have 1 left at this point. No, whoops, you accidentally skipped the cutscene. There we go.
Yeah, we will have 1 left.
Yeah, and then gonna sleep until 5 AM, and then go to Alamus's, whatever it is. I can't remember what that area is called now. But for the other tablet, basically. Just kind of grabbing the third tablet, and then we will advance to the next day and do pretty much the rest of the main quests.
So for some reason you can glide in this area, which I'm not entirely sure.
In heals.
your heels and on sand. I guess you could like sort of like sled on sand, but heels, yeah. The nice thing about gliding though is that I believe it's the same speed as sprinting, but it doesn't take up your stamina, so.
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of awkward to control though sometimes. And when a slope bottoms out, it can also just kind of get kind of slow. Like you slowly lose a bit of speed. Oh, you're stuck in the corner there.
Get stuck in the corner and lose time.
Whoops. Yeah, so here's another Pilgrim's Crux door, which is why we picked up the Crux earlier on. But that's the final one I think we have to open. No, wait, we need one more. It's the one I always forget about. There you go. So that's another day in the bag. Yeah, so back into Ruffian, just because it's the closest warp to a cactuar statue in the Dead Dunes, and it's also at the bottom of the list, so it's pretty convenient. Then we're going to walk back to the fancy door and hand in the final tablet for the final piece of the Crux, and then finish up the main quest, which will be fighting Perandus. Yes, Perandus.
It's Grendel if you beat it within like days 1 to 7, or it's Perandus if you beat it between days 8 and 12. Why the reason for the two different names, I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't really make that much sense. Yeah, we kind of didn't mention it, but Nowell also has a plus version after day 6 or 7. Obviously we saw Snow Plus earlier in the run, but Snow also has a double plus version once you get past day 10.
Oddly, Caius has no pluses.
Yeah. Grendel turns into Perandus and Caius stays exactly the same all the time.
Caius is as he always was.
Completely
In the
free.
past, the present, and the future.
Stay free, Caius. Okay, yeah, it looks like he just walked to the wrong place then. Oh, never mind, he's doing this first. Okay. Interesting. So it looks like he's actually heading towards Cactuar first, instead of the main quest. It might be he uses more overclocks here, which is why, possibly. Yeah, it doesn't really, I don't know. We'll see. But, so this is the final soul fragment we need for main quest 5, and it's locked behind this Cactuar fight, which is just a Cactuar with an afro, as it should be. Best looking boss fight. So if you have Magnet, you can choose this fight by just smashing. Yeah, there you go. Okay, he's got Magnet on this one.
Yeah, he just didn't want to use it in the other fights for some reason.
So Magnet lets you do this. Cactuar is kind of silly because it's like it absorbs ice or something, but also it takes 1 damage from every attack. So really, the best way to deal with it is use things like Thundara and Aurora, which have multiple hits, or Eroga, which has even more hits, which is why it's picked up if you don't have Magnet sometimes.
By the way, the last 5% of the HP bar is fake, which is why he just suddenly died.
Yeah.
For some reason.
But Magnet also does a lot of hits and has a much lower ATB cast and doesn't have a finisher, so you can just hold the Magnet button and occasionally overclock, and you win the fight. It's nice and simple.
Without Magnet, you would have to try to utilize abilities that hit multiple times. Like the Aroga that we were talking about in Caius' temple. We wondered why he didn't get it. Well, the answer was he had Magnet. But if he didn't have Magnet, it would have been better to use Aroga because it hits multiple times.
Yeah,
and then
plus,
between that... Right, yeah. Just don't use Blizzard, because it will fill out his HP.
Yeah, it heals instead of damaging, but unfortunately it doesn't heal for 1 HP, it heals for the max the actual damage it would do. So considering it only has like 700 HP, you're basically full healing. So ending the day, and then he'll be going back there for the next day to do the main quest for boss. Looks like he just did things in a slightly different order to what I expected. But the actual order at this point doesn't matter. Like, these are all just independent things.
Yeah. The next step is going to be to beat Perandus, finish main quest 4, and then go finish main quest 5 by talking to Sazh, and then we finished all the main quests, so we shall sleep. The sleeping portion is my favorite segment because in my splits, I have the split listed as Resident Sleeper because it is the Resident Sleeper segment of the run. Although on days 11 and 12, you actually will be getting items from Hope when you're in the Ark, so it's not really repetitive. Go to the inn and sleep. Return, we're going to in and sleep, but we'll talk about that when we get there. First, we have some stuff happening here. Getting ahead of myself.
So walking back to the Sacred Gate here, just because it's the closest point to the 3rd tablet, or the 3rd sanctuary, whatever they are. I don't remember what these little areas are called. But these tablets are actually pretty nice. They give you some kind of lore about the universe of the 13 trilogy at kind of like a earlier level that hasn't really been explained in the games to point. It's like a bit more kind of backstory to like the mythos between the gods and stuff. It's pretty cool. But completely useless for speedrun purposes.
Right.
Okay, so Perandus is another easy fight, as they all are.
I mean, it's actually not...
It does have some annoying things about it.
Like, the first part of it isn't, like, straight up trivial, but... I mean, it is an easy fight overall, but there's actually a little more going for it. But it's the same sort of throw potions, throw debuffs, although you can't debuff the first phase. So stagger, then throw the debuffs.
Yeah. And
then overclock. He actually has 2 different staggers, but the second one won't be seen.
And it's kind of annoying to stagger this guy as well, just because of how his kind of attacks move him. Like when you're going through damage.
That Ruben got launched lightning.
Wow.
It's just,
yeah, so
it's not terrible, it's just annoying.
So that attack he's starting now, it's called Raucous Breath or something. That's the annoying one, because it moves his hitbox around. And so hitting him with blitzes is kind of a pain to do sometimes. Oh, another Runga. Another breath. Okay, yeah, he should be fine. But you can see kind of lightnings getting pushed around all over the place while doing these blitzes. Oh, that one's completely whiffed by the look of it. But there you go, nice and easy.
So this item here that he's skipping is actually a sort of cool item. I believe it's the Preda Hood, which provides 75% magic resistance, but it basically makes your strength and magic 0 for the garb that you're using. But the way that resistances work on lightning side in this game is that they are additive. So if you have 75% magic resistance and then you put on a garb that provides 15% magic resistance, plus you equip another accessory that provides 10% magic resistance. You actually have 100% magic resistance, and you become immune to magic damage, which is a pretty important thing to have if you're going to fight the super boss of this game, Aeronite, or one of the super bosses, who most of whom's attacks are magical. It makes you able to fight that boss without much else, which is nice. But we don't do that in the speed run, so we don't even bother picking it up.
It was also used for the final boss at one point, I think. Or is that the other one that does physical resistance?
It used to be used on final bosses, but now it's not, so...
Yes. But yeah, that's handy in main quest 5, so we are done with all the main quests. Now we just have to get to the end of the run, or the end of the game, which is a lot of sleeping. Because as mentioned earlier, although we're kind of done with all the main quests, you can't advance the end of the game earlier in any way. And it says 2 days remaining, but it's actually not 2 days remaining, because we're going to get another day from finishing the main quest in the moment. But suffice to say, there's going to be a lot of sleeping in Luxorion for a while.
Yeah, this is sort of a demonstration of how the time limit in this game is pretty lax. Although we obviously skipped most, like 99% of the side quests, and we knew what we were doing, so it's not really that fair of a statement. But still, the main game doesn't really have too much to do. So the focus of the game certainly is in the side quests. Some of which are pretty fun. If you want to see some side quests done, you should watch New Game Plus Dash speedruns, if anyone ever does them. So, as I mentioned, this is the Resident Sleeper split of mine, where you're simply killing time by returning to the world and then sleeping 6 a.m. because I only got 24 hours last night. It's enough. I gotta sleep some more. But I think after this day, the runner will go up and talk to Hope to purchase Heroes Potions. The Warrior's Potion only provided Bravery and Faith, but they are immediately available from day 1 in the arc. Heroes Potions are only available starting on day 11, and they provide Bravery, Faith, Haste, and... Vigilance, that's the other one. And the Haste is going to be super vital for the final boss. I'm sure you've noticed at this point how we talk about how every fight has a pattern of buff yourself, debuff enemy, stagger enemy, and overclock and kill. The final boss is not going to follow that pattern because it's going to take... The fight itself is going to take 6 minutes. And we don't have enough EP to be able to keep overclocking like that. So the final boss is going to require ATB management for the first time in a long time. And Haste will help tremendously with the ability to keep our ATB up.
Yeah, Haste becomes super important in the final boss, just because of how much stuff we need to do and how quickly we want to do it, because letting the final boss stay alive for a long time is usually not a good idea. Yeah, so here we can start getting those Heroes Potions. And then we'll get 4 today and 3 or 4 on the next day. I'm not entirely sure if he's actually going to get 4 or not. Not sure. But he'll have like 5 or 6 Heroes Potion, the End Frost Potion, and then possibly a Phoenix down, I think, for the final boss. I think you have 10 slots total, so...
Heroes Potion is twice before that point, so he'll have 6. And then the Infrost and Arrow.
Wait, he's only got 3 slots spare now because he has a Phoenix down still.
Oh. Interesting.
So he's gonna dump the Phoenix down, or
You might just dump it because, I mean, you don't really need it.
yeah, and you can rebuy one if you want it before the final boss anyway. We'll see.
Right. Yeah, there are generally 2 slots spare in your recovery item list for the final boss, and so you can either have 2 X potions, an X potion and a Phoenix down, or 2 Phoenix downs, depending on sort of whether you think you'll die or you expect to be diligent enough to restore your HP before you would die. That's only really in emergencies. You don't really ever need that unless a mistake happens.
Yeah. The Phoenix down is just there for safety, really, but recovering, like having to use the Phoenix down and then recover from that really sucks.
Every time we return to the Ark, there's a random cutscene that happens. Not really random, but like just random story events. And that one featured Sid Reigns, but I don't think it actually is Sid Reigns.
No.
Just some person parading as Sid Reigns. I don't know, but it's
Lumina. It's always Lumina.
Oh yeah, he only got 2 or 3 of them, so yeah, he's holding on the Phoenix down. Interesting.
I mean, thinking about it, if he does reinforcement skip, he doesn't need it for the soldier fight, so that's probably the one he's skipping out.
Aha. But this is the last day, right? He's gonna go sleep till 6, and then we'll be on the final day. There's a difference between last day and final day.
Yeah, and then there's the extra day as well, just to be confusing.
Yes. So even though like the time says, oh my gosh, 0 days remaining, and 6 a.m. they ended, there's actually enough time to go to an area we have not been to yet, but you could have visited. And it's some sort of church. I don't know what the exact...
Luxorion Cathedral.
Cathedral, that's the name of it. Yeah. And this is where Vanille resides, actually. And after you beat Main Quest 1, a pop-up comes up saying you can actually visit Vanille in Luxorion Cathedral. But it's not actually a required story segment.
No. Just a couple of nice cutscenes. I mean, like, such a huge portion of this game is technically missable, as you can see from the speedrun.
Yeah. In fact, people used to think a long time ago that the first part of the Wildlands main quest was that you had to talk to Dr. Canopus to find out that there's a Chocobo Eater you have to fight, because people didn't realize you could actually just run up to the Chocobo Eater and fight him.
Yeah.
But of course, it doesn't really matter too much because you still have to go, or you still would want to go to Canopus Farms to pick up the Woodland Walker, because it helps against Chocobo Eater. But still,
yeah. So we just picked up a chest there, which improves Equilibrium, Dark Wizard, and Mist Wizard, and some other garb to improved versions, Dark Mage or something. I don't remember what his actual name is.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Mist Wizard is kind of... The Mist Wizard Plus replaces whatever spell it has with Element, I believe. Which is quite nice.
Yeah.
Equilibrium gets a better attack. Equilibrium Plus gets a better attack, and then I don't even remember what the other one does. Is it Heavy Slash?
It's something with Heavy Slash, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it turns the attack on that garb into Heavy Slash.
Yeah, that sounds
but the
right.
nice thing about Equilibrium Plus is it gains the passive ability for better ATB recovery on passive garbs. So when you are trying to regain your ATB, you should sit in Equilibrium Plus because your passive garbs will have a faster recovery rate. In general, the passive garbs have a faster recovery rate than your active garb. Yeah. So if you're trying to manage your ATB and you realize, oh, I don't have enough ATB to use the Heavy Slash on this garb, if you really want to use that Heavy Slash, shift out of that garb so that it will regain the ATB faster.
Yeah. The other one is Dark Muse.
Ha.
That's what I forgot. And little random trivia. The element on Mist Wizard Plus, it actually has the wrong description on it. If you
Right, yeah.
look at the description, it's like a description for an element that doesn't exist.
It says something like Flame Spark or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's like a description for a spell that doesn't actually exist in the game, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so the final day, it's a little different. We don't have time to worry about anymore. But
Yep,
instead,
the clock is gone.
Because time has stopped. It is the end of the world. So we have a few fights.
The end of the world as you know it.
This fight is kind of interesting because, yeah, so you can see... Oh no, he did use a Hero's Potion here. Interesting.
Yeah, and I think he didn't get the reinforcement skip.
No, he
Maybe.
didn't.
I don't know.
I didn't think he went for it, to be honest, looking at how he did the fight.
Yeah.
But basically, there's... Oh no, he did get one of them, because he only had to fight 3, not 4. Oh no, there's the 4th. Never mind. Never mind. The camera isn't very good in this fight.
I mean, I saw it was guard D, so I knew there was 4.
Right, yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of that. But basically, there's 2 soldiers to start with, and they summon another soldier each. But you can set up to skip that. It's a pretty specific setup, though, and requires a slightly different setup from what I remember. So now, heading down into the depths of the cathedral. There's 2 more forced fights before you get to, like, the end section. But first, just a bit of running around. Nowell shows up in that cutscene and does some stuff. Basically. And then Fang shows up at some point.
So this area is sort of interesting. Again, because the clock is... There's no more clock now, so you can escape freely if you really wanted to.
Mm.
But there's some interesting accessories here that provide 2 boosts at once instead of just once, though on some sense they're stronger than the normal accessories, but they're not really worth going out of the way for. And then in the next area, it's sort of like the 4 trials. There's like 4 different doors you can enter, or 3 different doors, I think. 4. And each one has a set of 3 enemies in them, followed by a strong spell.
Yeah, it's the tier 4 spells for each element. So
and then
Flare
I think
for fire,
if you
Chill for ice, Tornado for air, and whatever the thunder one is, I don't remember.
Right. Surge, I think, actually.
Yeah, sounds about right. And if you do all 4, you can get ultimate weapon.
Yeah. Which replaces the it's whatever Lightning's default weapon is. It only exists for like the final boss, and it provides super strength and magic boosts.
Or farming the final day specific enemies if you have to do that. Because if you're going for all last ones, then there's some specific enemies that you can only get in this area, which is kind of a pain. But yeah, so this fight is a Chimera. The idea is stagger it and then heavy slash it. He didn't actually go for the weak point. There is, funnily enough, Chimera enemies have a weak point at their butt where they take double damage, which is pretty funny. There aren't many positional weak points in the game, but that's probably one of the best ones. Just for the sheer humor of it. And now we have to fight 2 Anubises. Well, not Anubises though. Powered up Anubises. They're called sets, I think. Yeah, set. They're basically Anubises.
They're a set of sets.
Yes, they are. Does it contain itself?
Exactly.
So you may notice if you kind of understand what's going on with this game, but the heavy slash we have on Dark Muse Plus is not only like a really good damage source, But because of the weapon, because you have Chaos's Revenge on it, it also has it will stagger an enemy that is in near stack state or red wave. So it is really helpful, especially in the final boss, for staggering phases, because we don't actually have to get all the way up to stagger. We can just kind of get close, and I think the actual threshold is 75%. And then we can stagger from that, so we don't have to spend as much time staggering, which helps a lot. And then also the heavy slash gets the damage boost for doing the stagger, which is also our main damage source, so as you may guess, it is pretty convenient. What's he buying from Mog? Let's see. X potion and a Phoenix down. So yeah, just recovery items. And now we're heading into Cosmogenesis. Well, whatever it's called. I think it's Cosmogenesis. Whatever this area at the end of the game is
This area that looks really cool, I have to say. Very nice design.
So I actually didn't notice if he picked up decoy earlier. I assume he did.
If he doesn't have it, this is going to make things very
interesting, to say the least. So this fight is split into 4 phases. Okay, I'm just going to preface by saying this is probably one of the best bosses in any game I've played. I really love this boss.
I mean, this boss is sort of the reason to run Lightning Returns, because everything to the point is pretty simple.
Yeah.
I mean, once you recognize the pattern.
But this boss is great.
But like, if all you do is study the first part of the game, then you get to this boss, and you'll be walled forever and freak out and whatnot.
But yeah,
so there are 4 phases, as Nelson said. So, do you want to do phase 1?
Sure. What is he doing? Okay, interesting. Oh, he bought a bravery potion. Okay, interesting. I see.
Oh yeah, that's
clever.
I think that's
like
that's Oot's route, actually, is to get a bravery potion. So part of the problem here is that you are limited to 5 buffs and debuffs active at any time, and Doom is a permanent buff or debuff on you for phase 1, so that limits you to only 4 buffs. And the Hero's Potion gives you 4 buffs. If you then throw in Frost, you will lose the bravery.
Yeah, because it removes from the left to the right. And bravery is technically inflicted first. So doing that, so then having a bravery potion means you lose faith, which is fine, you don't want faith. So first phase is pretty straightforward, you just kind of stagger with spells, do debuffs, and then kill him. This is the cool part. Okay, so this is the shuffle. You do this to get as far away as possible, and his 3 orbs follow you. Oh, you didn't have 60 FPS. Interesting. Okay, so if you have full 60 FPS, the decoy does something different. It falls through the floor, and then it can't be hit by anything, and it will stay alive for the rest of the fight. That did not happen, so he's going to have to manage his EP a little differently this time. Shouldn't be too bad overall.
I don't know if he even reset his frame rate after...
He did.
Okay.
So yeah, so second phase has this attack, which blows up all the orbs. The decoy's probably dead now, but the general idea is that having the decoy means that Booney isn't trying to kill you. He's trying to kill the decoy instead. I think it happened.
Didn't get the floor glitch either, so he has to manage his EP a little better now.
Yeah, so that kind of sucks. But generally, the kind of idea here is, again, stagger and then use heavy slashes for damage, but we also want to try and keep the decoy alive because it's taking the brunt of the damage and the brunt of the kind of effect. The big AoE attack at the start of phase 2 is the main concern, but there are some AoE attacks in phase 3 that are also pretty annoying to deal with if we can't get rid of them. And okay, yeah, so there's a Thundaga. So he got Thunder Spirit, which means he's Thunder Elemental, so the N arrow lets us hit weaknesses. The reason for getting the End Frost Potion earlier was so that we had an alternate element to use in case he did N arrow on himself, so that you would be healing with arrow instead of damaging. And because we have Imperil, then having an element that's like perpendicular is also fine, as long as we don't use the element he's resisting or actively absorbing, whatever it is. So this is now phase 3. Phase 3 is cool because the stagger status is daze, so we can do crazy damage. Unfortunately, phase 3 kind of builds up in a bit more of an aggressive way. Ooh, that's not ideal. I mean, his hero's potion just ran out, so it's not too bad. Oh, he's retrying. Okay.
Yeah, I think he probably doesn't have any more end potion. I don't know.
No, I think he had the Enfrost potion still. But that's fair enough, to be honest.
He just wanted to show off the first 2 phases again.
Yeah, but I mean, we'll explain it again when we get there again. But the 3rd phase kind of builds. Like he starts off, he like buffs himself aggressively, and then
he's double checking the frame rate.
Yeah,
he knows about the bug glitch, and he's wondering what's going on.
That's unfortunate.
Oh, man.
Okay, so we get to explain phase 1 again, and maybe do it a bit better.
Yeah, so we get the deep protect, we get the Imperil,
and then the main staggering comes from Fire. Do you have a Midnight More still?
Yeah, so the reason that Maelstrom was excited about the Bravery Potion is because if you don't have that Bravery Potion, as we said, Bravery, so some people don't even bother getting the end spell on this phase. They just take the Hero's Potion and then do Deep Protect damage instead of the end potion, which is a little slower, but you can't really have both. However, after the first stagger, Booney will cast either Debrave or Defaith, and if you cast Debrave, Faith,
yeah, it's a bad time.
Like if you cast Debrave, obviously you have to recast rethrow the Hero's Potion, but if you cast Defaith, you'll have enough buff slots to throw your end spell, which is nice.
You can also do what he did there, when if you get the Hero's Potion before Doomcast, then it chucks off Bravery. And then you can just use the Bravery Potion and still have the end spell.
Did you see
he got it that time. So now there's no decoy, but there is. So the decoy's alive, it's just falling into infinity, and will continue to fall into infinity for the rest of time. So now, Booney's, as you can see, Booney's spells just kind of immediately go through the arena and down into the abyss. But they will never hit the decoy. The decoy will never die. Well, okay, that's kind of a lie. The decoy can sometimes still die. It's a bit weird. But the decoy should never.
Like, I think it will get hit by Ultima.
Yes, it will get hit by Ultima, but you should never see Ultima.
Probably other things. Well, just grind runs until you never see Ultima.
Yeah. So it's more like using debuffs and attacks to maintain stagger, Blizzara to increase staggering, and then heavy slashes for big stagger jumps and big damage when we need it. So it's just a lot of shifting between multiple garbs, and you can really kind of see the effect of haste, giving us like a lot of chances to actually do everything we need to do. Okay, so here he's going to stagger with the heavy slash. Yeah, so there you see like 119,000 damage for a single heavy slash. It's great. So yeah, phase 3, finally get to explain it. So he uses an ability called like Holy Light or something. I can't remember what it's actually called. But it gives himself a buff. So the first one he gets is Vigilance, and then he gets Bravery, then Faith, I believe. And then he'll use Ultima. And we want to kill him before that happens, because Ultima sucks really badly.
Yeah, that attack, I believe the attack he just used is called like Almagest.
Yes.
And that one will still hit lightning even if it's targeting the decoy, because it goes out in a horizontal direction.
It's just in a straight line.
So when it happens, you sort of have to be ready to guard it.
Ooh, that's unfortunate losing the Bravery Potion there. That's a lot of his damage output just went because he lost the bravery just as he got the stagger.
And there's the other Almagest. Although he's out of the way this time, so that's good.
You can't actually move around freely in fights, which we haven't really seen or talked about. Because in most cases it's completely unnecessary. But in this fight it can help, because if you can get out of the angle, because where Booney will always face the decoy, if you can not be directly in front of him, then all of his physical attacks and Almagest just won't hit you, and you can just keep attacking him.
And we have actually moved backward, but we did that by the backup method of spam a debuff and then guard to cancel it, which is faster than just backing up manually.
Yeah. So once you finally get through the first 3 phases, you get to phase 4, which is this thing. And Phase 4 has a lot of pretty horrible attacks you have to deal with, but perhaps more importantly has crazy high stagger resistance. Luckily, those attacks we don't really have to deal with that much because, decoy is still a thing. So his laser attack, which is probably the more annoying one we'd have to worry about. But some attacks he does have, like Elementiga and Heartless Angel, will still hit lightning.
Yes.
So the main idea here is just use as much EP as you possibly have, and just get the stagger.
And there's the Heartless
stagger
Angel.
is the most important thing. Heartless Angel is best case scenario because all it does is reduce your HP to 1, and you really don't care if that happens.
Right.
Because once he's staggered, he's done. And so now the idea is...
Yeah, look at these crazy damage numbers. He becomes super... So he's immune to debuffs before the stagger in Phase 4. After the stagger, he's susceptible to everything, and he takes a lot of damage. Yeah. So the fight is done once you stagger him.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Boom.
Time of 3:52, sub 4.
Nice. Yeah, it was a very smooth Boony fight second time around.
As we said, the final boss takes several minutes, unlike the other fights, which is why we're all talking about battle strategy out of nowhere. But that's a really fun fight. I love doing it, and it's when I run a Lightning Returns run, it's only so I can get to the final boss because it's the main part of the main draw of the run.
Yeah, but there we go. Final time of 2:30:26. Not a terrible run.
Well, GG to our runner, and hello everyone. My name is Sakura Tsubasa, and I'll be